This presentation will deal with the circle of fifths. Well, okay, the circle of fourths or the circle of fifths or the circle of keys. It's all circles, so who cares, right? And we know that the difference between G to D and D to G, it's the same pitches, they're just upside down. So I like to think of it as the circle of fifths, but other ways make sense as well. Major scales contain different patterns based on the intervals that are present in there and based on letter names and based on sharps and flats. And we're going to see that a pattern emerges that's very simple to follow, and we can arrange that in the circle of fifths to understand it better. It's actually very simple to look at, and we can make it more and more complicated, but the theory behind it is quite simple. If we start by making some major scales, we know the C major scale is all the white keys on the keyboard. We've got our first tetrachord C, D, E, F, then our second tetrachord G, A, B, C. And we know that, the C major scale has no sharps and no flats. So we're going to keep that kind of our center of our universe here. If we were to construct a D major scale, however, we're going to start on D and follow our pattern of whole and half steps. And we're going to end up with a tetrachord that has D, E, F sharp, G, and then A, B, C sharp, and D. So we see that the key of D major has F sharp and C sharp. It has two sharps. Well, if we were to construct all of the different major scales and put them together, and if you do this on your handout, I suggest you do them in order, not the order that it's on the screen. But for instance, G major has one sharp, F sharp in it. The B major scale has 5 sharps, C, D, F, G, and A. A major has 3 sharps. D major, 2 sharps. E major, 4 sharps. F sharp major, good gravy, man, 6 sharps. And then, of course, C sharp major, which everything is sharp, because C major is everything natural, so if we raise the root note a half step, we have to raise everything a half step. If we glance through this pattern of scales, all of these sharp keys, we'll see that if they have any sharps, that first sharp is always going to be F sharp. If we look at the first 3 sharps, we would always have F, C, and G. So let's put these into a little matrix here. If we've got a scale with 1 sharp, the key is going to be the key of G, and the sharp note is going to be F sharp, the 7th scale degree, the leading tone. If we have a scale with 2 sharps, we're going to have the leading tone in that key, which would be C sharp in the key of D, plus F sharp, which ends up being the 3rd. If we have a scale with 3 sharps, we're going to have the new leading tone, which would be G sharp in the key of A, plus F and C, which are the 3rd and the 6th. 4 sharps, we've got E major. The leading tone in E major is D sharp, plus the previous 3. 5 sharps, B major. Leading tone in that key is A sharp major. 6 sharps, we've got F sharp major. The leading tone for that is going to be E sharp, which would be this F natural on the keyboard, we know from our enharmonics studies. And then 7 sharps, we would get the C sharp major, which would be everything sharp, the leading tone of that being B sharp major, or the same as C natural. So we see this pattern F, C, G, D, A, E, B. Well, if we look at the order of keys that we've got here, the major keys, and we start on that F at this number 6 here, we see that we've got F and then C, and then we go all the way back over to this side, we've got G, D, A, E, B. So it's the same pattern, however it is offset a little bit. We got F all the way through B in our scales, and F through B in our sharps. If we were to do the same exercise with the major scales with flats, we would find this pattern. The key signature with 1 flat is F major, and that is the 4th scale degree, and F would be B flat. A scale with 2 flats is B flat major, and the 2 flats would be B and E now, because E is the 4th scale degree. Scale with 3 flats would be E flat major, you've got B, E, and then A. 4 flats would be A flat major, B, E, A, D. 5 flats, D flat major, B, E, A, D, G. 6 flats, the G flat major scale, where only F would be natural. And finally, 7 flats, which would be the C flat major scale, everything flat. Well, now we see the same pattern of F, C, G, D, A, E, B, but for the flats, it's reversed. So instead of going from F to B, we can go from B to F. And you'll notice that it's much closer on the flat scales, that we're only offset by 1, B, E, A, D, G, C, F. So the pattern of sharps is simply the inverse of the pattern of flats. It's very convenient because we only have to memorize one of them. I like to memorize the flats because the first 4 letters spell the word bead, and then we just add G, C, F. If you do the sharps, you can come up with any mnemonic device of your choosing. So, recapping, the order of flats is the reverse of the sharps, and the order of the major keys does contain the same pattern, but it is offset. It would be super convenient if, the G major scale had, something similar to that, but, well, actually that wouldn't make any sense. You couldn't have the G major scale with a G sharp. But since we've got 12 keys and we've got the same thing forwards and backwards, it works really well to organize things in a circle or, doing a clock face, right? In the 12 o'clock position, high noon, we're going to put C major. And we know C major has no sharps and no flats, so we're going to leave it there. Next, we're going to organize our sharps going to the right. We've got G major, which has 1 sharp in the key signature, D major, which has 2, A, which has 3, E, which has 4, and B, which has 5. Now, let's pause right there because we're starting to see that we've got our flat pattern happening backwards here. B, E, A, D, G, C. Well, we're going to see in a moment that F is going to go right here. That's why I've extended these 2 lines a little bit, because going in this direction we'll have our order of sharps, and then going counterclockwise we'll have the order of flats. Next we've got our F sharp major, which has 6 sharps, and I put this one in parentheses because C flat major has 7 flats. It's not a very practical key. I've only seen it a handful of times in some really awful pit orchestra music. But theoretically, that's where it would be on our wheel. Let's go to our flats next. As I said, going to the left, we're going to add our flats. And of course, F major is our first flats, and that completes our order of sharps or flats going counterclockwise. B flat major has 2 flats, E flat major has 3 flats, A flat has 4 flats, D flat has 5 flats, which is much more common than seeing C sharp major. So that one is shown in a little bit bigger. When we get to the G flat major, we know that has 6 flats. F sharp major has 6 sharps, so those are very equal. It's kind of interesting too that those happen right at the 6 o'clock position on the clock as well. And then we'll add in our C flat major. Of course, B major is going to be more common because there are only 5 sharps as opposed to 7 flats. So when we're reading this, if we were not to know offhand the key of A major, for instance, we would look at this and say A major has 3 sharps. And what are those 3 sharps going to be in the key signature? They're going to be F, C, and G. Or if we wanted to determine what D flat major would have, well, we see that that has 5 flats. And then we would count our flats up, B, E, A, D, and G. It's also worth noting that we would follow our same pattern of flats going this direction. We have B, E, A, D, G, C flat, and then technically F flat would be the same as an E major on the white key there, but that's a very impractical key signature. Why is it called the circle of fourths and the circle of fifths? Well, because of the way the leading tones work out in the patterns, we end up seeing that C up to G is a fifth, G up to D is a fifth, D up to A, and so on and so on. And if you keep going in fifths, you do end up hitting all 12 chromatic notes. Or the inverse of that, if you went to the left, you'd have the circle of fourths, C going to F, F going to B flat. And actually, when we start looking at function, we'll see that that's a 5 going to 1 relationship, which is very useful in harmony and in jazz in particular. So we would get this sound if we were to play from C going all the way around the wheel till we got back to C. Believe it or not, that's C, the same tone we started on. You kind of get lost because it takes you so far afield from that. Way we can make it this even more useful to us is add the minor keys to the center ring. These would be the relative minor keys that share a key signature. So, for instance, E minor, we know, is the same key signature as G major. They're relative, and E minor would have 1 sharp, and that would still be F sharp. So this is a convenient way to show what our relative minor keys are. I hope this presentation helps you understand all the differences between the circle of fifths and how it's constructed so that it can be a useful tool for you in your musical endeavors.